Hello, and thank you so much for joining me here at the Paul Wisdom Project. And thank you so much for watching my previous video on what the life of a chef looks like. Now, what I'm going to talk about in this video, like I mentioned in the other, is I'm going to talk about the different levels of moving up in the hierarchy in the industry. And I'm going to explain them what each of them hold, what are your responsibilities in that spot, and and how long and will you get to that particular will you get to that particular next level that you want to get to? Okay, so let's get right into it. Before I get into it, though, I just want to mention one thing. So you see all these badges here. You see all these badges. Yeah. So you're probably wondering where did he get all those badges? How did he get them? How did he get them? Yeah. So these badges, believe it or not, are actually from a restaurant that I worked at. Essentially, how it went down was that it was pretty much what they are. So as you can see right here, this one says grill certified on it. This one says saute certified on it. This one says fryer certified. This one says pantry certified, and then this one here says oven certified. And I also got one for prep certified, but I wasn't. They just didn't have any more to give me. Now, how did I attain these badges? So essentially, what the place I had, the place that I worked at, what they had at the time was what was called a badge program. Now, it's what's a badge program? So what the badge program was for when you learned a section of the kitchen, you pretty much moved on to you pretty much got a badge for that section. So I'll go over in detail. So um, let's say we're talking about grill, for example. So let's say that so you've been working this section for let's say about a year or so, or 2 years. Once you become familiar with all the facets of that section, so I'm talking like all the specs, how to cook everything, all those different things that go into the section. Then your kitchen manager will come up to you and or your chef will come up to you and he'll say, okay, so are you ready? Would you like to get, I'd like you to get certified on the section. And then how that goes is they're gonna pretty much go through some things with you. And those things meaning they're gonna look at your attire, your uniform. They're gonna see if it's clean and in order. They're gonna check they're gonna ask you a few questions about sanitation. They're gonna ask you a couple questions about the section. So we're talking about grill now, okay? So they're gonna ask you a couple questions about the grill section. What does it need? What are you supposed to do on it? Then after they ask you those questions, if you answer them, assuming you get them all correct, then they'll move on to the next phase, which is they're gonna choose three dishes, and they're gonna say, make me three dishes from this section. And if you make them according to the spec, the way it's supposed to be made, then what after you so let's take for example grill. So you're making they say make this dish, make these three dishes for me. You make one dish and then you bring it to the pass, and then after you put it into the pass, you made all the dishes now. Okay, so let's say you make this dish, you make that dish, you make all the dishes, you put them up in the pass. And after you put them in the pass, your kitchen manager will look at them, and then he will pretty much grade them up and make sure that everything's according to spec. And then once he finds out everything's according to spec, then he gives you you're awarded a badge for that section. Yeah, so that's how that goes. In case y'all were looking at this and you guys were wondering, what are these? What do they mean? Yeah, that's typically what they mean. Okay, okay. So now we're gonna move on to the next part. So I'm gonna go through all this stuff in detail. So when you start off in the kitchen, the question people ask is, what do you generally do? Where do you start? Do you start cooking right away? The answer is it depends. It depends on your level. It depends on your level of interest, and it also depends on where you start working. Some places they'll start you at prepping. Some places they'll start you in the dishwasher. Some places they'll start just putting you on the line right out of the gate. It really depends on the place, and it depends on your level of interest, and it also depends on the chef, the place, right? That's what I said. Yeah. So we're gonna start off with just going through all the different hierarchies of becoming a chef. Okay, so the first one we got is down at the very bottom is being a dishwasher. Now dishwashers, believe it or not, are actually the most important in a kitchen. I won't forget this. I did a course at Humber, Introduction to Dining Room Service. And the question the instructor asked was, what is uh, what is the asshole of the kitchen? And we were all trying to figure this out. We all just stood there and looked at each other. We were just like, uh, and believe it or not, the answer that came out of his mouth was the dishwasher. And I thought to myself, seriously? Because I was thinking it was the schedule because a lot of people have difficulties showing up to work and stuff, and sometimes so this person can't make it for that's just what I thought. But let's get back to it. So he said the dishwasher, and then we said why the dishwasher? And then he said because without the dishwasher, how are you gonna eat your food? Yeah. So that's actually a really good point. It's a very, very, very important thing. Without the dishwasher, you can bet your dollars that you will not be eating any food from there. Okay? So the dishwasher is actually one of the most important things in a kitchen. And when I talk dishwasher, I'm not just talking about the big machine. I'm talking about the people like people actually washing the dishes, okay? It's one of the most important things that every kitchen actually needs. Okay. Now I just wanted to make a point about the dishwasher. Generally, the dishwashers they generally again it really depends on the kitchen. It all depends on the kitchen. It depends on who's running the kitchen. Generally, the dishwashers they generally start when service starts. That's generally their start time. They generally start anytime service is starting. Sometimes but it really depends on the kitchen. If it's like a hotel, golf course, or a breakfast place, they generally start first thing when the first cook comes in. They generally start then. If you're working in like a restaurant, depending on how busy or slow the restaurant is, generally the dishwasher will start then. Yes, when service starts, because there's not much going on before they open, so there's no need for no dishwasher. But again, it really does depend. Generally, dishwashers, what they do is they generally depending on the kitchen, some kitchens have a mechanical machine where there's where everything gets put into it. You close it, and then the water turns on and it washes the dishes for you and soap and chemicals and soap and water and all that stuff. Okay, that's generally the start. Other kitchens don't have no. I've worked in kitchens where they don't even have a dishwasher. You have to wash everything by hand. So some kitchens, yeah, they do only have sinks, and you wash everything by hand. And the dishwasher generally, if depending on how long this dishwasher has been working at the place, depending on his what else he does, sometimes he or she will actually be called on to do other jobs. That could be prepping, that could be helping on the line to restock, that could be helping to prep other stuff. Yeah, dishwashers are actually really effective if you use them properly. I just wanted to point that out as well. So that's generally what a dishwasher. That's generally what a dishwasher does. So we're starting from the bottom. We're gonna go to the top. Okay, so follow me. Okay, so dishwasher. Those are what dishwasher. And then after dishwasher, you have your you generally have what's called a kitchen helper because generally speaking sometimes you have those people that just want to work in the kitchen. They don't do dishes, they don't cook, they don't prep, they don't do anything. They just generally help. They're generally people who you'll see will be all around the kitchen. They'll help bust tables, they'll help wash dishes, they'll help drop something in the fryer if the help is needed. Generally speaking, those are what kitchen helpers are. They're really effective as well. So if you can get some of those, then that would be great. The other thing I wanted to mention, so we got dishwasher, then we got kitchen helpers, and now I'm moving up to line cook slash prep cook. I say line cook slash prep cook just because, well, actually, you know what? Let me rephrase that. Let me actually rephrase that. So then you got the prep cook. So the prep cook is generally the person that comes in and he or she generally does all the things that require a lot of time and a lot of quantity. So generally speaking, if for example on your par sheets on the sheets that the chefs check off for prep and whatnot. If, for example, like you see that they need to portion, uh, um, I don't know, 20 bags of cheese, for example. Generally, that's left up to prep to do. You can have your cooks do that, but generally speaking, that's like a prep's job. Prep generally does that. But again, remember, don't quote me on any of this because it depends on the kitchen. So if you work in a kitchen and you find out that you're online, you're prepping, you know, don't quote me on it because it depends on where you work. Some places they'll have you, they'll have you prep that stuff, and some places they'll have you working on the line and prepping at the same time. I've done it, so I know what it is. Um, but back to what I was saying. So what I wanted to mention, is that yeah, prep cooks. Yeah, generally speaking, they do a lot of the stuff that take a lot of time. So if you know that you're out of meatloaf, then the prep cook will generally make that meatloaf, get it in the oven, just so that when service starts, that meatloaf is ready. You know what I mean? So those are generally some of the things that prep does. And prep cooks are really efficient and prep cooks are really helpful. There's times where prep cooks can prep cooks actually go on the line and they help the line cook. So I mean those prep cooks can actually be really effective if you use them. And generally speaking, prep cooks generally start out about say they generally start after, again, it really depends on where you work. Sometimes prep cooks, believe it or not, they generally work the nights. Sometimes they start right before service starts. You know what I mean? Sometimes they start when the dishwasher starts, first thing in the morning. It generally depends on what kitchen you work in, because every kitchen is very, very different. And they run like I said before, keep it in mind, every kitchen is the same, but they just execute and have different parts of their kitchen. So that's something else to keep in mind. That's generally what a prep cook does, by the way. Okay. Next thing I wanted to go into is a line cook. So we did dishwasher, we did kitchen helper, we did prep cook. Now we're moving on to line cook. So generally, a line cook, also called a kami. Some places, so that's spelled Commis. So kami. So generally, a line cook or a kami is someone who generally works the line and works a particular section of the kitchen. That's generally what a line cook does. They generally on the line they're responsible for, let's say, grill or fryers or sautéing or pantry slash salads, because those mean the same thing, or desserts, because pantry slash salad slash desserts, they're all three of those are the same in majority of kitchens. Okay. So yeah, generally speaking, the yeah, the prep cook, sorry, the line cook generally works either of those sections. They generally work whatever section they're comfortable with, and depending on their how long they've been at the establishment, sometimes line cooks can work two sections at once. You know, depending, again, it really depends on your level of experience and how long you've been working at a place. So that's something else to keep in mind as well. So that's generally how a line cook generally works on the line. So we did dishwasher, we did kitchen helper, we did prep cook, we did line cook, and now I want to move up to the next one after line cook, and that is a chef de partie. So a chef de partie, generally another word for chef de partie is somebody. A chef de partie is generally someone who knows the kitchen but doesn't need to be supervised. They can pretty much work any part of the kitchen without supervision. That's generally what a chef de partie actually means. Okay, uh, or uh, or your tournant chef. So a tournant chef is someone who can float, somebody who can work many sections, who can go to work this section, work that section. That's generally what a tournant or a chef de partie actually looks like. They're not that much different. Okay. So those are important. Those are important people. So we move on to the next one. Now we're moving. So we move. So we just discussed those. Now we're moving up to the ones that where you're reaching where you're almost close to the top, where you're getting to the top, where you're close to it. Okay. The next one I want to cover is a kitchen supervisor. So generally, a kitchen supervisor is just that. It's someone who supervises the kitchen staff. Somebody who knows the kitchen, who's confident in all the sections, and can supervise all the kitchen staff from their cooking, from what time they leave to what time they start. That's generally what a kitchen supervisor does. They supervise. Okay, so that's that. Okay, now we're moving on to the next one. The next one is called a sous chef. That is spelled Sous, chef, sous chef. Or other people in some places, because like I said, every place is different. In some places they won't even know what a sous chef is. You know what I mean? So they call it what's called an assistant kitchen manager. Okay, so assistant kitchen manager slash sous chef, they're the same thing. They're pretty much called by the same name. Okay. So generally, what these people, so sous chef, what is a sous chef? What does sous actually mean? What sous means is under. That's what the word. If you need to write it down right now, write it down. It means under. Okay, you're an under chef. Okay, so that's what. So an under chef is generally a chef who is under, is a level, a brigade under, is a hierarchy. He's underneath the executive chef. He's an under chef. And what a sous chef, assistant kitchen manager, is responsible for, he's actually in charge of the kitchen supervisor now. He's more or less the assistant. He's the head chef's assistant manager. Okay, and generally what he's responsible for is for training staff. He's responsible in some places that assistant manager will actually be in charge of hiring. He'll also be responsible for pitching in his or her expertise on menus. He or she's also responsible for running the kitchen in absence of the executive chef. And he's also responsible for, believe it or not, he's also responsible for the maintenance, and he's also responsible for looking after the kitchen. So he's essentially a manager. That's what a sous chef is, an assistant manager. Okay, so that's that. Now we're moving up to what's called head chef. Now, a lot of people get this mixed up for some reason. Sometimes people think that a head chef is an executive chef. I'm going to explain where the two are totally different. So a head chef is generally the person who is responsible for the whole kitchen. He's actually above the assistant chef or the sous chef. He's responsible for the whole kitchen, everything. Everything is his responsibility. Okay. Some places have a head chef, and some places it really, again, guys, I can't stress this enough. All of this really depends on where you work, because every place is going to be a little bit different in their and how they call brigades. I've worked in places where the sous chef was actually above the head chef. I don't know how that works, but hey, that's generally that sometimes can happen. Okay, okay. So that's generally what a head chef does. Okay. Now we're gonna move on to the next thing. We're gonna move on to executive chef. Now, executive chef is pretty much a head chef. The only difference is that the executive chef is actually responsible for menu planning. He's responsible for making all those menus. So when you go into a restaurant and you see those menus, and you see all those menus that you're reading and that you're ordering from. The executive chef is actually responsible for doing that. And generally, the executive chef, that's another thing I wanted to point out that some of y'all think that some of you got sort of mixed up. Head chefs generally cook. An executive chef is not supposed to be cooking at all. The only time the executive chef is supposed to be cooking is if his sous chef calls in and can't work. That's generally the only time that the executive chef generally gets out of his office and cooks, because he's supposed to be in his office working on menus, working on what's gonna happen in the operations and the goings of the operations and whatnot. Um, that's generally he's responsible for overseeing all the different facets. So if you're working in a place like a hotel and there's many different restaurants, That executive chef is responsible for all those restaurants, everything. That's what the executive chef is. Okay. So I just wanted to point all those things out. Another one that I want to point out is that you heard me say is chef de cuisine. What is a chef de cuisine? A chef de cuisine is generally just like an executive chef. He's pretty much someone who yeah runs the kitchen. It's just all these are just different. Some of these are just different names of saying different things because some people think that this name sounds better or that name sounds better, so they just call it that name just because. Okay. Okay. Um, yeah, so those are the different hierarchies within the kitchen that I just wanted to point out to you guys. Uh, Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for watching for joining me on the Paul Wisdom Project. It's really it's starting. I've started it today, and and I hope that with you guys I can continue producing these videos and answering the questions that some of you guys may have for me. In my next video, I'm just going to be talking about, uh, you know, how to, uh, I want to answer a question that a lot of people have, and that is that, uh, is there, is there, uh, is there a possibility, uh, what does, how long does the average chef generally last in the business? That's the question I want to answer for you guys. So thank you for tuning in, and see you next time.